Good evening and welcome to Horror Historian. My name is Amanda and tonight we'll be discussing the 2000s Japanese series Battle Royale. Now, the first movie is based off of a book. It was written by Takami Koshin. Unfortunately, he has never written another book. So the sequel is an entirely original one created by a father-son duo. This movie was directed by Kinji Fukasaku. He sadly passed away between this movie's release and the creation of the second movie, but he was involved with the sequel. Kinji was most known for the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series. Those were Yakuza movies, which I can definitely see a bit like there's some style similarities, I understand. His son wrote this movie, wrote the sequel, and then took over directing. He is most known for these movies, X-Cross and Black Rat. The stars are Tatsuya Fujiwara, Taro Yamamoto, Chiaki Kiriyama, and Beat Takeshi. Fujiwara is most known for Death Note, Rurouni Kenshin movies, and the Kaiji movies. Hilariously, he also did the dubbing for Stuart Little and Emperor Kuzco, and I need to hear those. Beat is most known for his long-running comedy career, which you can absolutely see in his performance. He is most known by me for Takeshi's Castle. Kiriyama is the true icon of the movie. She is most known for her roles in Kill Bill Volume 1, X, and Ju-on the Curse. But the true coolest person from this movie is Taro Yamamoto. He is the founder and leader of the Reiwa Shinsigumi, which is an anti-establishment progressive party. They're all for minority rights, animal rights, they're anti-nuclear, and strongly against Shinzo Abe policies. He's most known for standing up to the emperor and for being mad that someone was trying to put up an anti-refugee bill that he was trying to jump them on the Senate floor.
The movie opens giving us a glimpse into the world that we're about to enter. The unemployment rate is 15%, meaning that 10 million people are without a job. As a result of this economic hardship, 800,000 students boycotted school and turned to crime because, frankly, school wasn't going to get them paid. The government responded with the Millennium Education Reform Act, or the Battle Royale Act. Each year, a class of students is selected to fight to the death. It's a reminder of how much danger every class is in. An example is made out of these students. We get a glimpse at a previous winner, a young girl clutching a doll, smiling with the expression of someone that has had something deep inside of them snap. We then meet our class 1 year before their selection for the Battle Royale. Our main character is Nanahara Shuya. His best friend is Nobu. They bonded while in foster care. Shuya's mother had abandoned her family, and his father had committed suicide the year prior. Nobu is alone as well, and he is troubled as a result, to the point where he uses a knife to slash at his teacher's ass during a random outburst. That teacher eventually quits, and Nobu drops out of school. 1 year later, Nobu has returned to school to join a field trip. A sweet girl from the class named Noriko had sent him a letter that he really took to heart, and he has a crush on her, so he returns at her urging. She brought cookies for Shuya, which Nobu ends up taking because he has a crush on her, and it's kind of clear that she has a crush on Shuya, but it doesn't matter. They're just here for the cookies. It's a wholesome moment of middle school normalcy, exactly what you'd expect on a bus ride. But as the bus enters a tunnel, they are knocked out by gas. One by one, everyone collapses. Shuya wakes up briefly later, seeing the bus driver wearing a gas mask and a mysterious man with him. He starts trying to escape the front and is knocked out completely. The next time anyone wakes up, they're in a classroom inside of a building on an abandoned island. There are armed soldiers lining the walls, and the person that steps to the front of the classroom is none other than their teacher from the previous year, Kitano. He seems to have a vested interest in watching them suffer. Each student now wears a metal collar around their neck. They cannot remove them. They also notice two unfamiliar faces. They are described as transfer students. These students are shown a video explaining the situation of the game they are about to play. None of them seem to remember the national act called Battle Royale, and any doubt of the seriousness of the situation are erased when presented with their deceased teacher. He apparently fought back against what happened to his class. At least that's what happened in the book. Before the rules can be completely explained, panic erupts. The class rebels in screaming and running around, an understandable reaction given what they've just seen. Kitano takes the chance to get some revenge on Nobu and kind of cuts him in the same area that he had been cut. The military uses gunfire to try and restore order, but one of those bullets ends up hitting Noriko in the arm. It's not immediately threatening, but she did get shot. That's when reality sets in. This is happening if they like it or not. They're going to fight to the death. In 3 days, there may be one survivor or everyone is going to die. The metal collars around their necks will track their location, confirm their lives, and kill them if they enter an restricted zone. Anyone caught in a restricted zone, they don't have time. They're done. Nobu is made an example of. Kitano doesn't even give him a chance to survive the game. He activates Nobu's collar to make a point. His throat explodes in a shower of blood. Shuya is left in shock, unable to react much as the rest of the speech continues. The students are called one by one, receiving a bag containing food, water, basic supplies, and a random item. Some are weapons, some are survival tools, and some are utterly useless for the situation at hand. After his name is called, Shuya waits around outside for Noriko because he wants to basically take care of her the way Nobu would have wanted. Shuya nearly gets himself shot by an arrow for the trouble. Luckily, someone else takes the shooter out, and Shuya manages to escape with Noriko. Unfortunately, their supplies are both pretty useless. Shuya gets a lid of a pot, not even the whole thing, and Noriko gets a pair of binoculars. And to be fair, the binoculars are a little bit more useful. But when you see the other students running around with machine guns and grenades, it's hard not to feel as though they got the short end of the stick. We see the other students kind of like rushing away from the building. That part of the island immediately becomes restricted, so there's no reason to go back. Only one group really considers fighting back. We'll get to them later. Some students are entirely unwilling to kill and choose to take themselves out of the game. One pair is done by hanging, another by jumping off a cliff. They're couples, so the reality that there will be only one survivor probably hits them a little bit harder. More importantly, this is where we meet my favorite character, Mitsuko. She's deeply troubled, and the movie dives briefly into her background later on. When she was a child, her mother sold her to a man, and Mitsuko pushed him down the stairs to kill him. She's not a good person by any stretch, and we learn that she has stolen boyfriends and coerced students into prostitution. She ends up being a tertiary villain of the story. We're introduced to Mitsuko when she finds another girl hiding inside of a cabin. She asks her that the other girl points her taser at her, and she really lays it on thick. She takes the girl's weapon and teases her a bit before killing her with a scythe. I've always found Mitsuko fascinating, especially in the book. Her entire mindset is survival, nothing else really matters. She never had friends, and she doesn't pretend otherwise. In the novel, she briefly has a genuine connection with an unlikely student, but that subplot didn't make it to the movie, which is fine. At the end of the day, she is who she is, regardless of who she is standing in front of. Mitsuko is kind of a mirror to the other solitary killer on the island. While she protects herself at all costs, Kiriyama simply doesn't care about other people's lives. Either way, the other students are getting in the way of their survival. In the book, Kiriyama is a regular student who grew up alongside the other students. Some even considered him to be a friend, but something was wrong during his birth, implied to be brain damage that left him without the ability to have empathy for others. In the movie, however, he's a volunteer who jumped at the chance to rejoin Battle Royale for the love of the game. I understand the reasoning behind the change, but it feels silly when we're introduced to him in the same way. He's surrounded by a bunch of other students. In the book, they were his friends. This time, they're random people. He easily disarms them and turns their weapons around on them, killing them without hesitation. He takes such quick control of the situation that it's kind of impressive, but also terrifying. By the time the sun comes up, the island is in total chaos. Everyone is scrambling to adjust to their reality. Shuya finds himself in a confrontation where he kills another classmate that was attacking him and Noriko with an axe. A girl witnesses that from her perspective, and kind of looks like Shuya deliberately drove the axe into the boy's head. However, in reality, the boy had done it to himself. Later, Shuya and Noriko end up in some real trouble, only to be saved at the last moment by Kawada, who steps in before they can be taken out. I find Kawada to be a really interesting character, and he's really empathetic despite who he's most associated with. He claims that he didn't volunteer and that he was kidnapped like the rest of them. I'm not entirely sure I believe him because he does lie a lot, but it is revealed later that the government is aware that he accessed certain files, so it may have been targeted. Regardless, Kawada proves to be kind, saving Shuya and Noriko more than once in a short period of time. Two girls broadcast an attempt to bring everyone together to work and survive. Shuya finds the idea appealing, but thankfully Kawada stops them from heading towards the hill. It ends up being a good call, Kiriyama showing up almost immediately to gun them down. He even broadcasts their dying breaths. For a short period of time, Kawada leaves the other alone, appearing to not really want to stay tied to anyone for too long. And to be fair, they don't entirely trust him either. Mitsuko faces against a girl named Hirono who knows some darker truths and has some personal beef with her. It sounds like her boyfriend was stolen and one of the friends was manipulated into working with Mitsuko in seedy areas. Mitsuko tries to play the victim, feigning innocence and ignorance of the first girl's death right up until she kills Hirono. That's part of her strategy, using the fact that no one really knows her so that they'll underestimate her. That's why her body count can get so high during this movie. Back with Shuya and Noriko, her wound from the bullet is starting to show signs of infection and she has a fever. Shuya all but drags her to the house, which turns out to be occupied by Kawada. Instead of turning them away, he offers help, saying that his father was a doctor. But his father's job changes depending on his explanation as to why he is so good at something. It leaves his past a bit of a mystery. Now seems like a good time to talk about the nerds. Their leader is Shinji, and he's kind of another standout character, and there's quite a few. His uncle was an anarchist who has escaped from the Japanese government. He's actually going to show up in the sequel, which is probably the only thing I actually like about the sequel. Shinji himself is a hacker, and he has somehow managed to get access to a laptop and connect to the government, whatever. He figures out that the collars contain microphones that broadcast everything the students say to the military. That means any real planning needs to be subtle. His solution is typing the instructions on how to build a massive bomb out of the materials that they could easily scavenge on the island. So they do that while trying to avoid any students that may want them dead. It also seems like a good time to introduce Chigiyusa, another strong character. She's a track star and she is close with a boy named Hiroki. He spends much of the movie coming in and out of the narrative while looking for her and another girl. Returns to her hiding spot after a morning run only to be confronted by a creepy classmate. He tries to make sexual advances towards her on the basis of being virgins, and when she firmly rejects him again, he throws a temper tantrum and fires an arrow at her. It slices through her cheek but doesn't do any serious damage. She quickly turns the table, leaping on him and repeatedly stabbing him in the dick until he's dead. That's when Mitsuko finds Chigiyusa and unloads a gun that she has managed to pick up. Chigiyusa is hit, but she manages to keep running. She runs until she reaches a dam where Hiroki finds her. She admits that she has romantic feelings for him, but confirms that he doesn't share those feelings with her. And she's fine with that. She's just glad that she's not dying entirely alone, and she doesn't get a lot of screen time, but she's very memorable. Meanwhile, Kitano does his quarter daily check-in. He chastises the students for slacking off since barely anyone has died. He then announces the next restricted zones. I wish the movie did more with this mechanic. In the book, there's a scene where Kiriyama uses the time limit to kill another student that was stalking him. Back with our main three, Noriko is starting to recover, and Kawada opens up to them about himself. He had once won Battle Royale himself. He shows the scar as proof. He explains that in his game, he and a girl that he had loved deeply made it to the end of the game. He had been ready to die with her until she shot him, choosing to live over their love. It didn't kill him, and she was killed soon after. He leaves the exact circumstances ambiguous, but they were the last ones left. What's clear is that he is still dealing with that trauma and the fact that the girl he loved died with a smile. Kawada insists he never wanted to return to the game, but Kiriyama jumped at the opportunity in contrast. That man wanted to be violent. Unbeknownst to Kawada, Shuya, and Noriko, a nerd with a bulletproof vest is moving nearby. Unfortunately, he catches the attention of Kiriyama, and for a moment he thinks that he has outsmarted the sociopath. But Kiriyama doesn't leave things unfinished. We've seen it a few times, actually. Kiriyama can tell they're inside and throws a grenade in for the trouble. In their panic to escape, they kind of end up branching off in different directions. Shuya gets Kiriyama's attention and is chased by him. Noriko escapes with Kawada. She's probably safer with Kawada, though, so fair. Shuya does take a few hits, but nothing that would fatally wound him. I honestly think he's more injured by the fall, but by the time he wakes up, he is in the lighthouse. Hiroki had found him and gotten him to safety, which was nice of him considering he really had no motivation to do so. He's just a nice guy on a mission at what he sees at the end of his life. At the lighthouse, a group of girls had been hiding there since the game began. One of those girls is the witness that saw his axe murder from earlier, and she does not trust him to leave the room. Only one of them talks to him to start out with, giggling about having bandaged him and having to strip him to do so. It's a reminder of how immature they all are because they are just kids at the end of the day. His rest doesn't last that long, though. Chaos erupts when the girls are attempting to make a meal for everyone. The witness is still convinced that Shuya is dangerous, and her item was poison, which she puts in his bowl. She doesn't get the chance to give it to him, though, as a girl grabs it and starts eating. She dies, and immediately accusations fly. It ends in gunfire, and the only survivor is the person that caused the problem in the first place. The witness opens the door for Shuya and makes the comment that she had forgotten how much she liked her friends. And it's a harsh reminder when they're all gone. She climbs to the top of the lighthouse and takes her own life. Shuya is devastated. There's just been so much death surrounding him, and he must also suspect that his presence was a catalyst to everything that happened in the lighthouse. Kawada and Noriko have been hiding inside of a house, and soon they're going to have to move. That area is about to become a restricted zone, and Noriko admits that she is sheltered. She has never really had to struggle, and she kind of thought she'd always just have a normal life. Meanwhile, Shuya is limping his way across the island to find her. Somehow she senses when he is near and takes off running into the wet woods towards where her stomach tells her to go. Kawado runs after her but goes the wrong direction at the wrong time. Instead of Shuya, Noriko runs into Mitsuko. There's no prior conflict between them, but she'd be an easy kill for Mitsuko. Mitsuko tells her to die ugly, and that image really did numbers on Tumblr back in the day. Then, unexpectedly, Mitsuko freezes and runs from the clearing. At first, I thought it was Kawada, but it turns out to be someone much stranger. Throughout the movie, there have been hints of Katano having a small obsession with Noriko. She was kind to him when he was a teacher, and he's often shown nibbling on the cookies that she brought out for the bus ride. When he appears and scares Mitsuko off, he just hands Noriko the umbrella that he had been carrying. Shuya arrives not long after, and the two students are obviously disturbed as they watch their former teacher leave. He leaves just as abruptly as he arrived. Elsewhere, Hiroki has finally found Kotohiki, and she opens fire on him immediately. His item had been a tracking device, it just didn't tell him who he was finding. He's risked everything in the chance of finding her, but she panics and doesn't realize his intentions. With his dying breaths, he confesses her feelings to her and urges her to run, knowing that the gunshots will attract others. She is devastated because he had never given her a single hint of his feelings prior to that day. They weren't close, he just seemed to find her cute, and he figured he wasn't going to be surviving anyway. Might as well get that off his chest and give her the best opportunity to survive. She dies. It's another tragic moment in a movie full of them, but the girl doesn't make it far either. Mitsuko shoots her the second that she fully enters the room. She's not the only one drawn in by the gunshot, though. Kiriyama arrives and opens fire on Mitsuko. To her credit, she puts up a solid fight. She returns fire and lands a few hits. Her bullets all hit the bulletproof vest that Kiriyama stole from the body of the nerd. With that, our secondary villain takes out our tertiary one. For the record, I do consider Kitano to be the primary villain. Now only 7 people remain. The 3 with Shuya, the 3 nerds, and Kiriyama running around. Shinji and his remaining allies manage to hack into the government system, scrambling data in a last-ditch effort to get the bomb as close to them as possible. Their plan is about to go off, but then they are found by Kiriyama, and he wipes out the other 2, leaving only a gravely injured Shinji. In a final act of defiance, Shinji sets off the bomb, and it doesn't kill Kiriyama, but it certainly knocks him a little bit loose. Shuya and Noriko are mostly bystanders in the final confrontation. Kawada is more than happy to face Kiriyama head on, and he's really the only qualified person to do so. Kiriyama shoots Kawada, but he does an excellent job hiding that fact. In retaliation, he sets off Kiriyama's collar, killing him with a fair amount of ease. With the main threat gone, Kawada and the remaining survivors go towards the cliff to rest. It's the final day, and Kawada turns to Shuya and Noriko to tell them that they made a mistake by trusting the wrong person. He means himself. 2 gunshots can be heard over the microphones, and their colors are showing no signs of life. Katano calmly orders the military to leave, assuring that everything is wrapped up and he can take care of everything from there. The military obeys, abandoning the building before Kawada can arrive. When he enters, Kitano confronts Kawada. He mentions that a few months ago someone had accessed the government's database and discovered how the collars work, how they can be messed with. Kitano suspects Kawada, although Kawada claims he has no idea how to do any of that. Noriko and Shuyo then enter to reveal the truth. Kawada had deactivated the collars, and that was how they faked their deaths. There are no cameras, so they rely solely on the collars to track the students. Katano unveils a painting that he had been working on throughout the movie, a childish depiction of the entire class slaughtered, except for Noriko standing in the center with an angelic glow and the only survivor. To Katano, she will always be destined to win, the only one worth saving. He wants Noriko to kill him, but Shuya takes the shot instead to spare her from having to do it, also making sure that this is going to be done. Katano collapses, seemingly dead, until his phone rings. He gets up, although nothing happened, and answers it while laying down on the couch. He has a brief conversation with his daughter, who still despises him, a detail that makes the sequel a little baffling if we're being honest. Katano gets snarky with his daughter before hanging up. He then dies, this time for real. Shuya and Noriko and Kawada get on a boat and head towards the nearest island. They're the only survivors, and it won't take long before authorities realize that something went wrong. There will be 3 missing bodies. Well, make that 2. Kawada gives a quick tutorial on how to steer the boat and then collapses. He had been shot and was hiding it the entire time. He doesn't feel the need to anymore, having successfully saved his new friends. He leaves the 2 of them to carry on. Kawada's determination to fight to the end and fight the adults that put them through the situation leaves a strong impression on Shuya. They're now wanted for murder and they're on the run. Escaping from Japan seems to be the only real option. This movie is an excellent adaptation of the book. I love how many of the interesting characters they were able to go into depth with, dedicating moments to the real stars of the book. The gore is handled well, even when the gore explosions. It never felt like cartoonish. It's brutal, but not in a way that overshadows the story. What makes it hit hardest is the reminder that most of these kids are 15 years old. I think Kawada and Kiriyama might be a little bit older, but not by much. Kitano remains one of the weirdest characters, but a compelling villain. His grudge against his former students for making his life miserable as a teacher spirals into something monstrous. Koshan Takami, the author of the original novel, only ever wrote 1 book, so I was kind of surprised to learn that there was a sequel. Battle Royale 2 Requiem was released in 2003, which was the same year that unfortunately the original director passed away. It takes place 3 years after the original one, and I believe that this was the first time that Kenta was a director. And it was more out of necessity than anything else. I don't have a board because I don't care about any of these characters, and I only kept track of like 3 of them. Um, so there was no point. The stars that return are Tatsuya Fujiwara and Aki Maeda. The new stars are A. Maeda, Shugo Oshinari, and Riki Takuchi. Ai is Aki's older sister, and she's most known for Gamera 3, Revenge of the Iris, Kino's Journey, and Death Note 2, The Last Name. Oshinari is most known for Boys Over Flowers, Heaven's Story, and Death Note. There were so many Death Note adaptations, holy shit. Takachi is most known for Dead or Alive, Yo-Yo Girl Cop, and Yakuza Demon. He plays a version of himself in this movie. The movie opens with a quick synopsis of everything that has happened in the last 3 years, especially with the government struggling to get control of their teenagers, due in part to Shuya's terrorist group, the Wild Seven, which was a nickname, I believe, that was the baseball team that Shuya was in the book. They're doing a terrible job of juggling a bunch of upset people. Noriko is a member of the Wild Seven, but she is currently outside the country. Shuya had been with her, but decided that he couldn't abandon the children trapped in the cycle of violence in Japan. Our main character, and I'm using that term loosely, is Kitano's daughter. For clarity, I'll be referring to the daughter as Kitano throughout the section, and her father will be referred to as her father. Despite their complicated relationship in the first film, the sequel explores grief and parental loss. It almost feels like an intentional echo of what is happening in real life for this movie, although I doubt it was entirely thought out that way. Kitano wants to join the next game, hoping it will bring her closer to her deceased father. She's also bothered by the fact that the girl in the painting is most certainly not her. She hopes to learn who that girl is. To participate, she seeks out the most delinquent heavy class imaginable. The only real sense of unity amongst them comes from rugby, which they all rally behind whenever there's a game. It mirrors the basketball dynamic from the first movie. They are presented to us as being the worst of the worst, but they're also primarily orphans whose parents have been killed in these terrorist attacks. Kitano has no idea that she is entering a game that she has absolutely no basis to understand. In the time since Shuya's beginning acts of terrorism, the government has enacted a new law called the New Century Special Anti-Terrorism Act, also known as Battle Royale 2. This isn't going to be a traditional Battle Royale game, unfortunately for her. 42 students are sent onto a field trip until the bus gets filled with gas and knocks them all out. That's where the similarities to the previous film end. When they wake up, they're paraded in front of the media, who bombard them with questions and photographs. They are escorted into the facility. The reporters don't see them as individuals or children. They're treated like objects, dehumanized before the game even begins. The students start panic, understandably, but it becomes clear that this isn't a standard battle royale. Something much bigger is happening, and they're in a lot more trouble than usual. Their teacher, Ricky, steps forward to explain the situation, and his speech creates chaos. Before giving the details of their situation, he lists every country in the last 60 years that the United States has bombed. It's a pointed reference considering Japan's own history of being bombed by the United States. A thematic link to the ideas of terrorism and retaliation. Unlike the student's original teacher in the first movie, Ricky has no hesitation playing his role. In fact, his presence becomes even more layered as we learn two key pieces. He is also wearing a collar, and his daughter was killed in a Wild 7 terrorist attack. The rules this time are completely different, as is the goal. Instead of killing each other, the students are being sent onto the island where Shuya and the Wild 7 have been hiding. Their goal is to kill Shuya. They have 3 days. The final day will be Christmas. The game gives them the illusion of free will. They're expected to volunteer for the mission, but realistically, there is no choice. Katano is the first person to accept their fate. Obviously, she had gone to the class with that expectation. She takes her bag, her helmet, and her gun. She sits down and waits for the other students to follow her lead. They are called one by one, and they start crossing over reluctantly to the other side of the room. One of the major holdouts is Shintaro, a boy clutching the rugby ball that had been passed around on the bus and signed by the class. He can't stomach the idea of going into battle with the others, and he's already had enough of the violence. The teacher responds by having him shot in the leg, but he still refuses, so he's killed on the spot. His death enrages his closest friend and our actual main protagonist, Taku. He's thankfully easy to keep track of because he has bleach blonde hair. Taku nearly charges forward in retaliation, but he is stopped and he is restrained. The real twist happens when Kazumi's collar begins to beep. She dies because she was Shintaro's corresponding female student. The game has added another level of cruelty. Every student has a partner, and if one dies, then the other will be going as well. They also can't be more than 50 meters apart without their collars activating. This is meant to force teamwork, but all it really does is make the body count go up faster. They can't run away from the battle, and they have a strong motivation to keep each other alive. Unlike in the first movie, this one struggles to make us care about these kids. We don't even know that much about our main characters, other than Katano's daughter, and Taku is an orphan and a rebel. Soldiers were sent before, but they were slaughtered by the Wild 7. So now the government has decided to battle royale the situation. It's a way to kind of stop him because these are the kids he's trying to protect. But the Wild 7 aren't messing around. Before the students can even make it to shore, snipers take out a bunch of them. It really drives home how unprepared these kids are as they're ferried into this death trap. It doesn't get better once they hit land. Every time one student dies, their partner dies a little bit later, so the body count skyrockets. The action quickly becomes repetitive and endless gunfire and explosions. The class is desperate for ammo, so they have to move toward a designated drop site to have even a sliver of chance to survive. The whole setup feels contrived, designed solely to push Shuya into a brooding spiral. Sure enough, he's holed up in a building surrounded by candles, each one representing someone who died for a cause protecting kids from adults. The terrorist mission has shifted from avoiding battle royale from happening to trying to stop children from having to face systemic violence and the repercussions of adult choices. It's murky to say the least. And by this point, the film informs us that there are only 24 students. A massive drop considering how early we are in this movie, all things considered. Katano isn't messing around, and she's fully locked into survival mode. She's returning fire without hesitation. And she's really the only character we know at this point. Taku is kind of bumbling around in the background. He's always teetering on like a little bit too emotional for the situation. Finally, someone from the Wild 7 notices that the people they're shooting at have collars around their throats. This revelation actually gets Shuya to leave his candle-filled pity party and join the plot for the first time. Taku continues being a liability, and there's even a brief chance for the students to surrender to the Wild 7. But that illusion of choice evaporates when their collars start beeping, even though some of them still have very much alive partners. The Wild 7 have planned for this. They deploy an EMB, an electromagnetic field that disrupts the signal between the collars and the military. It gives them the chance to remove the collars from their throats, and this is a tense situation because, like, they're still trying to remove bombs. Despite the small mercy, no one is exactly sprinting to Shuya's side. These are delinquents, sure, but many of them lost family members in the various terrorist attacks Shuya's group committed over the past 3 years. They might share his hatred for the Battle Royale system, but Shuya is still a villain in their stories. The film does lean into that dynamic. Shuya finally starts talking and talking and talking. He explains what happened to him, why he ended up back in Japan, and once you break the seal on him, he just keeps going. I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of exposition dumps, especially when it's an ideology that is cobbled together, at best. The movie never clearly states what country Shuya and Noriko ran to, but it kind of seems like it's Afghanistan. A fitting theme given the recurring themes of US bombed regions. It's the children of that war-torn country that convinced Shuya to return to Japan and try to rescue more kids. Katana wants answers. She wants to confront Shuya about what happened when her father died on the island. She wants to know the motivations. But before she can, Christmas arrives and so does the military. They storm the island with all the grace and competence of the teenagers who had come a few days prior. Ricky is dealing with the soldiers in his own unhinged ways. He's clearly still grieving his daughter, and being involved with this is eating away at him. By this point, only 10 kids remain. One of the girls dies after succumbing to her injuries from the near constant bombing. During the daytime, you get a clear look at Shuya's base, and it resembles something that you would expect kids to come up with if they were left to their own devices. It feels like a survival playground. Shuya launches into another speech. This time he says that no one has ever achieved peace without fighting for it, which, fair, that is historically accurate, but it doesn't make the monologue any less drawn out. Meanwhile, Kitano wrestles with memories of her father, a man that didn't even remember her birthday. Her feelings are complicated, but it lacks the weight because we never really saw any depth of their relationship to relate to. She still hasn't been given the chance to have a private conversation with Shuya, so all she just stands there. The United States plans on dropping a bomb and putting the end to the Wild Seven once and for all. When Ricky learns this, he gets on a call with the Prime Minister, who couldn't care less. To him, it's inevitable collateral damage. They were never meant to survive. That's not good enough for Ricky, who rips open his shirt to reveal the collar for the first time, and he calls the Prime Minister a murderer. I was shocked that he had a collar, frankly, but I guess it makes sense that he didn't exactly volunteer for this. Meanwhile, Shuya announces that most of the Wild Seven will escape through a mine shaft that they will hope will lead them to a safety on the mainland. It's the closest thing they have to hope. The young boy wants to stay and fight with Shuya, but Shuya hands him his AK-47 and tells him to protect everyone with it instead. For a second, it felt like foreshadowing that Shuya wasn't going to make it out alive. They head into the mine shaft, leaving a few fighters behind. Taku and Kutano also stay, keeping watch and helping where they can. As more people start to fall, they make the hard choices. If they want to survive, they need to get Shuya out of there. Two girls are killed. They need to get Two girls are killed, but manage to turn the EMB off, letting the collars connect once again. The three make an escape route, trying to dodge the military along the way, until they run into Ricky, who is wearing his class rugby uniform, an oddly sentimental gesture. His collar begins to beep, but he shows no panic. Instead, he calmly admits that he had always wanted to join their games. After losing his daughter in the terrorist attack, he struggled. He wonders if there's something outside of winning and losing. Moments after they part ways, his collar explodes. And that was probably the only good moment in this movie, like emotional moment. Even then, their survival isn't guaranteed. Katano is shot during the escape and the bombing is incoming. The only hope lies in the mines, the same route that the others took, if they can reach it in time. Katano finally has the opportunity to talk to Shuya, and she properly introduces herself, and he's shocked to say the least. She presses him for answers, and he opens up about Naruko. She has a way of bringing light to people, and her optimism has changed lives, including his own. It's a reminder, and you feel Naruko's absence. Kitano dies soon after, and while the scene aims for emotional weight, it falls short. The impact could have been more profound if the source of Kitano's curiosity was actually present. Shuya and Taku escape the island just before the United States drops the bombs. 3 months later, they meet up with the rest of the Wild Seven in the mysterious Middle East country. There's a sense of relief as we see the familiar faces, but mostly when Noriko meets Shuya on the hill, still carrying that unwavering positivity. Unfortunately, this movie collapses under the ambition of the message. It struggles without strong source material and feels at times weird with the world established in the first film. The heavy-handed focus on the United States intervention in global politics overshadowed the real core concept: children being forced into impossible situations by the adults that make the choices. Shuya remains the best performance, but even he can't carry the weight of this hollow script. To be fair, no one is terrible, but it's just other than the three main characters, nobody has a backstory. The rest are just cannon fodder. The first movie got us invested. This time we have nothing emotionally there. What I had hoped was that the sequel to have Shuya infiltrate the program to save students, kind of in the way that Kawada had. Not this weird scenario that doesn't work. While I understand the production faced some unique challenges, the end result didn't remotely capture the original spirit. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Amanda. This has been Horror Historian. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed. I wouldn't survive either one. I wouldn't want to. That seems rough.